those among you who would be leaders must be the last of all and the servants of all. Very iconic Christian words that I don't think we live very well. And I bring that from a point of great humility, because even though they're very important words in my vision of who I am and what I'm doing in life, I don't always live them very well. And I don't even completely understand them as true, which is a great struggle. Some of that we'll share together this week, and hopefully maybe even grow together, both in our understanding and our living of this truth. There's some places where for me it's just like so obviously true. I had a bookkeeper once many years ago in a faraway parish who thought that I was the king of Salem, right? And anything I wanted was done immediately, and yes, sir, and no, sir, and but she was mean to the parishioners. And to help her understand that I wasn't her boss, that I was organizing and administrating, but together we served the people of the parish. I never convinced her of that, so we had to let her go. She wasn't very good at math either. But I was willing to overlook the math, but not the lack of service to the parishioners. There's nothing that irks me more when I drive into a parish parking lot to see reserved signs for the pastor or for the priests. I refuse to park in them because I've never driven up to a Starbucks and seen 2 reserved signs by the front door for the barista. Right? They're essential. I can't get my coffee if there's no barista. I need the barista, but I don't expect to see reserved parking signs for the one who's there to serve. I expect the one who's there to serve to kind of have to go out of their way a little bit more to make it easier for those who are being served. Now, I'll make an exception for the organist. Like if we need a sign reserving a spot for the organist because she's old and it takes her a long time to climb up the stairs and we might not be able to start Mass on time if we don't get her spaced real close to the front door, no problem. But even if you're an able-bodied organist, take down the sign, I think. But I say that, but if you drive to the chancery, there's 3 reserved signs out front for the bishops. It's kind of endemic in how we live our lives together. We say that the first shall be last and those who are leading will be serving. But in practice, I get a lot of invitations to Thanksgiving dinner. And I've started telling people, don't invite me, right? I've got a family, I've got friends, I've got a home. I'm gonna have lots of Thanksgiving dinners. I don't need another invitation. What about one of the guys in basic training off a base, right? What about one of the homeless families around here? Like what could you do to make somebody's Thanksgiving better rather than just try to get closer to the guy who's in charge? And that's a rough thing to think about, how we do, as a rule, spend a lot more energy on the people in charge. And Jesus would have said to do the opposite. And when we do that, it's a little uncomfortable because what he says doesn't seem to be true, right? Because the people who serve the most are rarely in charge. The people who serve the most clean bathrooms, right? The people who serve the most have hourly wages and aren't allowed to take overtime and struggle to pay their bills. And the people in charge, yes, they bring something special and unique and necessary to the organization. But being in charge, they oftentimes are compensated very well for it. I remember when I was first starting out working at the chancery, trying to run the diocese, and didn't have a first clue what I was doing, Archbishop Gomez helped me out with a friend of his who became something of a coach, like a business coach. But he never could understand why I didn't see this as a career path that would lead me to greater things, like being a bishop. He never could understand why my life's goal was to be the pastor of the parishes of Rock Springs, Campwood, and Lakey, kind of a neglected rural area of our diocese. Not neglected by anybody but the church, but neglected oftentimes by the church over the years. And yet there's something true there, but it's not something true that makes sense in the circles of leadership coaching, right? And so for us to kind of really own this idea when we gather at church, that we're not serving the Father, that together we're serving God, and the blessed place to serve God is in the poor, and for us to actually serve. And we can tell what that looks like by seeing who helps us out at a convenience store, who helps us out at the hospital, not the doctors and nurses, but the people that keep us from getting staph infections by cleaning the toilets and the floors and disinfecting the bedding. Like to recognize, if we are in a hotel, who's serving, and to see what about their way of life I can adopt in order to be someone who leads better in love. Yeah, if you've got any reserved signs for leaders, take them down, I think. By all means, I think Jesus wouldn't probably have put them up. But there's something deeper there. Aspire to service and love, not to being in charge. Fine, like that's Jesus ultimately led with his hand stretched out on the cross. And his crown was a crown of thorns, which he's trying to explain to the apostles before they decide that they need to be his numbers 1 and 2. But the ways that we politic, the ways that we try to get in good with the people in charge, the ways that we lobby, I don't know. I worry that this is one of Jesus's teachings that we've least understood as church and least absorbed as his followers. And I say all of this without a solution. Like, I've gotten to the point where some weeks I've tried to offer a solution, which is very brave of me. This one I don't have a solution for. I just have the ongoing struggle of my life, and still much of my life is easier and better, not because I'm serving and giving of myself, but because I'm in charge and people are being nice to me. And I think that there's something wrong with that. And I'm okay if you're not nice to me because I'm in charge. I promise. I haven't had any retribution against anybody. And I'd like to think that I would be just as happy serving and struggling, but I don't know that I've been brave enough to try it. And maybe I'll work on that and invite all of us in our various forms of leadership and our various efforts at lobbying to take to heart more of what Jesus had to say, to offer our love and our service, especially to those who need it most, not to those who most can benefit us when they return the favor.